I want you to imagine the smartest person you know. Someone with a good job, good friends, a good head on their shoulders. Now imagine watching that person walk straight into a fire. And when you scream at them to stop, they smile and say, "But it feels so warm." That was me. My name is Sarah, and this is the story of how I fell in love with a man who was slowly destroying me and convinced myself it was romance. If you've ever ignored a red flag because the sex was good, or the love bombing felt like being worshipped, or you thought you could fix him, this one's for you. I met Marcus at a networking event. One of those awful downtown mixers where everyone's pretending their startup is going to change the world. I wasn't looking for anyone. I'd just gotten out of a relationship 6 months earlier. Nothing dramatic, just boring. We'd run out of things to say to each other. Marcus was different. He walked up to me while I was hiding by the bar, trying to make one glass of wine last the entire night. "These things are torture, right?" he said. I laughed. "Absolute hell. Want to get out of here? There's a diner around the corner that makes the best apple pie in the city." We left. 15 minutes into the event. Just walked out like rebels. And that should have been my first clue. Red flag number 1. Love bombing. Marcus didn't date me. He consumed me. On our first date, he told me I was the most interesting woman he'd ever met. By the third date, he said he'd never felt this way about anyone. A week in, he was talking about where we'd travel together, what our kids might look like, how he'd been waiting his whole life to meet someone like me. It felt like being struck by lightning. Every text was poetry. Every date was an adventure. He remembered everything I said, my favorite flower, the book I mentioned once, the song that made me cry. He made me feel seen in a way I'd never experienced. And here's what they don't tell you about love bombing. It works because it feels amazing. You're not stupid for falling for it. You're human. We're wired to respond to intense attention and affection. But love bombing isn't love. It's a sales pitch. He was selling me a fantasy version of himself, and I bought it completely. Within 3 months, we were living together. My friends said it was too fast. My mom said she was worried. I told them they didn't understand what we had. Red flag number 2. Isolation, but make it romantic. It started small. "Do you really want to go to Rachel's birthday? We could stay in, order Thai food, watch that documentary you wanted to see. Your coworkers seem kind of shallow. Are they really worth your time? I just feel like your mom doesn't like me. Maybe we should skip Sunday dinner this week." He never said, "Don't see your friends." He just made it easier not to. And he framed it like he was protecting me. Like the world was harsh and our apartment was a sanctuary. Like it was us against everyone else. I started declining invitations. Stopped calling my friends as much. Told my family I was just busy with work. The crazy thing? I didn't even notice it happening. I thought I was choosing him. I didn't realize he was cutting away every other support system I had. By month 6, my social circle had shrunk to Marcus, my coworkers, and occasional texts with my best friend Emma, who was too stubborn to let me disappear completely. Red flag number 3. The double standard. Marcus needed to know where I was. All the time. "Just text me when you get to work, babe. I worry about you." "Who's that guy commenting on your Instagram?" "An ex." "Why didn't you answer your phone?" I called 3 times. But when I asked about his day, he was vague. When I wanted to meet his friends, he said they were going through stuff and it wasn't a good time. When he came home late, he said I was being controlling. I started feeling crazy, like I was asking for too much. Like wanting basic information about my partner's life made me needy and insecure. He had full access to my life, my phone, my location, my schedule, my thoughts. I had scraps of his. And somehow he convinced me that was normal. Month 7. That's when things started to crack. Red flag number 4. The criticism disguised as honesty. "Babe, I love you, but that dress makes you look heavier than you are." "I'm just being honest. You know I think you're smart, but sometimes when you talk about politics, you sound uninformed." I'm just trying to help you. I don't think you should cut your hair that way. I'm just telling you what I find attractive. Every criticism came wrapped in, I love you, or I'm just being honest, or I'm trying to help. And because he'd spent months making me feel like I was perfect, these little digs hit harder. I started second-guessing everything. My clothes, my opinions, my body, my intelligence. I changed the way I dressed. Stopped talking about certain topics. Started asking his opinion before I made any decision. I was editing myself out of existence to keep his approval. Red flag number 5. The weaponized silent treatment. The first time he went silent on me, I thought something was seriously wrong. We'd had a small argument. I can't even remember what about. Something stupid. But instead of talking it through, he just shut down. Didn't speak to me for 2 days. Slept on the couch. Acted like I didn't exist. I apologized. I begged him to talk to me. I cried. Finally, he forgave me. Said he just needed space to think. Said I needed to respect his process. But it kept happening. Anytime I did something he didn't like, stayed out too late with Emma, forgot to text him back immediately, disagreed with him about something, the silent treatment. Sometimes for hours. Sometimes for days. And the torture of it wasn't just the silence. It was not knowing when it would end. Not knowing what I'd done wrong. The anxiety of waiting for him to decide I'd suffered enough. I learned to walk on eggshells. To monitor his mood constantly. To apologize even when I didn't know what I was apologizing for. Red flag number 6. Financial control. Year 1. We'd been living together for 9 months. Marcus suggested we get a joint bank account. For bills and stuff. It'll be easier. It made sense. We were splitting rent, groceries, utilities. Why not streamline it? So I added my paycheck to the joint account. At first it was fine. Then he started commenting on my purchases. Did you really need a $40 face cream? Why are you buying lunch at work? We have food at home. I saw you Venmo'd Emma $30. What was that for? Meanwhile, he bought a $800 gaming chair without mentioning it. Went out with his friends and spent $200 at a bar. Bought crypto that he didn't want to explain to me because I wouldn't understand. When I brought it up, he said I was being petty, that he made more money than me anyway, so technically it was his money I was spending. That one hurt, because it was true, he did make more. And somehow, he turned my contribution into a liability, my paycheck into an allowance. I started feeling guilty every time I spent money on myself. Red flag number 7. The manufactured jealousy. Marcus started accusing me of things I wasn't doing. I saw the way you looked at that waiter. Your boss has a thing for you. I can tell. Are you cheating on me with someone from work? You've been distant. I wasn't cheating. I wasn't flirting. I was barely leaving the apartment except for work. But his accusations were constant. And they made me feel like I had to prove my innocence all the time. I started dressing more conservatively. Avoiding eye contact with men, over-explaining where I'd been and who I'd talked to. And here's the sick part, his jealousy made me feel wanted. Like he cared so much that he couldn't stand the thought of losing me. I didn't realize that jealousy isn't love, it's possession. Red flag number 8. Gaslighting. This is the one that almost broke my brain. I'd remember conversations we'd had. Clear as day. And Marcus would tell me they never happened. I never said that. You're remembering it wrong. That's not what happened. You're being dramatic. At first, I'd argue. Insist I was right. But he was so confident. So sure of himself. I started doubting my own memory. My own perception of reality. Did I imagine that conversation? Did I misunderstand what he said? Am I going crazy? I started writing things down. Keeping notes in my phone of arguments we'd had, promises he'd made, things he'd said. Just so I could prove to myself I wasn't losing my mind. That's when I knew something was deeply wrong. When you're secretly documenting your relationship just to trust your own brain, you're not in a relationship anymore. You're in survival mode. Year 2. Things escalated. Red flag number 9. The rage episodes. Marcus had always had a temper, but he directed it at other things: traffic, his job, people who disrespected him. Never at me, until he did. It started with raised voices, then slamming doors, punching walls, throwing things. He never hit me. He made sure I knew that. I would never hurt you. I'm not that kind of guy. But he'd throw his phone across the room, punch a hole in the wall next to my head, break dishes, scream in my face until I was shaking. And then, an hour later, he'd cry, apologize, say he didn't know what came over him, that he loved me so much it scared him, that I brought out emotions in him he couldn't control. He'd blame stress, his childhood, his job, me. If you hadn't pushed me, if you just listened. You know I hate it when you do that. I started managing his emotions like they were my responsibility, trying to keep him calm, avoiding topics that might set him off, walking on eggshells. The apartment didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like a minefield. Red flag number 10. The betrayal. I found the messages by accident. His phone buzzed while he was in the shower. I glanced at it, instinct not snooping. A message from Jamie popped up. Last night was amazing. When can I see you again? My stomach dropped into my feet. I opened his phone. I knew his passcode. He'd made me give him mine months ago, so I had his too. There were dozens of messages. Not just to Jamie. To 3 different women. Pictures. Plans. Lies. He told them the same things he'd told me. That they were special. That he'd never felt this way. That he'd been waiting for someone like them. I screamed when he got out of the shower. Showed him the phone. Demanded answers. And you know what he did? He turned it around on me. You went through my phone? You invaded my privacy. These women mean nothing. You're the one I love. If you weren't so cold lately, I wouldn't have needed attention elsewhere. You're going to throw away 2 years over some meaningless texts? He cried. He begged. He promised to cut them off. To never do it again. To go to therapy. To be better. And like an idiot, I believed him. No, not an idiot. Like a woman who'd been systematically broken down for 2 years. Like someone who'd lost herself so completely that she didn't remember what she deserved. I stayed. Red flag number 11. The cycle. Here's what the next 6 months look like. Honeymoon phase. He was perfect. Attentive, loving, buying me gifts, taking me on dates. Everything I'd been craving. This was the man I fell in love with. Tension building, small criticisms, little digs, moodiness, walking on eggshells again, waiting for the other shoe to drop. Explosion, a fight. Rage, cruelty. Things said that could never be unsaid. Me crying, him blaming me, reconciliation, apologies, promises. I'm so sorry, baby. I'll change. I love you so much. I can't lose you. And then back to honeymoon phase. Over and over and over. I knew the pattern. I could predict it, but I couldn't break it. Because every time he was sweet again, I convinced myself that this time was different. This time he meant it. This time he'd changed. Red flag number 12. My body knew before my brain did. I started having panic attacks. Random. Sudden. My chest would get tight. My hands would shake. I couldn't breathe. They happened most often right before I had to go home from work. My body was literally trying to keep me from going back to that apartment. I stopped sleeping well. Lost weight. Had nightmares. Cried in the bathroom at work. My boss pulled me aside. Sarah, are you okay? We're worried about you. I lied. I'm fine. Just stressed. But I wasn't fine. I was disappearing. The moment everything changed was so small you'd miss it if you blinked. I was at work, having lunch with Emma, my best friend who'd been trying to reach me for months. She'd shown up at my office and refused to leave until I agreed to eat with her. "Sarah, I'm worried about you," she said. "You're not yourself. You never come out anymore. You don't return calls. You look exhausted." "I'm fine. Marcus and I are just going through a rough patch." "How long has this rough patch lasted?" I opened my mouth to say a few months, but I stopped because I realized I couldn't remember the last time I was actually happy. Like, genuinely happy. Not just relieved that he wasn't angry. Not just grateful for scraps of affection, but truly, deeply happy. "Sarah," Emma said gently, "do you remember who you used to be? Before him?" And that's when I broke. Right there in the office cafeteria. Tears streaming down my face. 2 years of pain spilling out. I told her everything. The isolation. The control. The cheating. The rage. The way I felt like I was losing my mind. "You need to leave," she said. "Today. Right now. I'll help you." "I can't. He needs me. And I love him. I know he has problems, but—" "Sarah, listen to me." She grabbed both my hands. "Love doesn't make you afraid. Love doesn't make you small. Love doesn't make you panic at the thought of going home. That's not love. That's something else." Something cracked open in my chest. She was right. I'd been calling it love because I didn't want to admit what it actually was. Control. Manipulation. Abuse. That word. Abuse. I'd never used it because Marcus never hit me. Because I chose to stay. Because sometimes it was good. But abuse isn't always physical. It's not always obvious. Sometimes it's slow, subtle, a gradual erosion of self until you don't recognize the person in the mirror. That night, I went home and looked at Marcus. Really looked at him. He was playing video games, ignoring me like usual. And I felt nothing. Not love. Not anger. Just emptiness. "I'm leaving," I said. He didn't even pause his game. "Where are you going?" "No. I'm leaving. For good." Now he paused, looked at me, and I saw the calculation in his eyes. Which version of himself would work right now? Angry Marcus? Sad Marcus? Loving Marcus? He chose sad. "Baby, no. What happened? Talk to me." "Whatever I did, I'm sorry." "I'll change. I promise." The same words he'd said 100 times before. But this time, they bounced off me. "I'm done," I said. And I walked into the bedroom and started packing. He cycled through all his tactics. First, he was apologetic. "I know I've messed up. Give me one more chance." Then he was angry. "After everything I've done for you, you're just going to leave." Then he was manipulative. "You'll never find anyone who loves you like I do. You're making a huge mistake." Then he was threatening. "Where are you going to go? You don't have any money. You need me." And finally, when nothing else worked, he was cruel. "You're pathetic. Broken. No one else is going to want you." Every word was designed to make me stay, to make me doubt myself, to pull me back in. But I kept packing. I left with 2 suitcases, my laptop, and my dignity barely intact. Emma picked me up, didn't ask questions, just hugged me while I cried in her passenger seat. I stayed on her couch for 3 weeks while I got back on my feet. Marcus called 47 times the first day, sent 100+ texts, showed up at my work, emailed me, messaged my friends and family saying I was having a breakdown and they needed to convince me to come home. I blocked him everywhere. And then I did the hardest thing I've ever done. I sat with the silence. No more chaos. No more walking on eggshells. No more managing someone else's emotions. Just silence. And it was terrifying, because I'd gotten so used to the noise that peace felt wrong. But slowly, day by day, I started to remember who I was before him. The hardest person I had to confront wasn't Marcus. It was myself. The psychology, why we stay. I started therapy 3 weeks after I left. And the first question my therapist asked was the one everyone asks. Why did you stay so long? I didn't have an answer. Not one that made sense. But over months of therapy, I learned something crucial. Staying wasn't weakness. It was survival. Here's what was actually happening in my brain. Trauma bonding. Remember those cycles? Abuse, then kindness, then abuse, then kindness? That creates a chemical addiction in your brain. The unpredictability releases dopamine. Your brain starts craving the highs to escape the lows. It's literally addictive. Cognitive dissonance. I'd invested 2 years. I'd told everyone he was great. I defended him. Leaving meant admitting I was wrong, that I'd wasted time, that I'd let myself be treated that way. It was easier to stay and hope he'd change than face that truth. Learned helplessness. He'd spent 2 years teaching me that nothing I did mattered, that I had no control, that his moods, his anger, his behavior, none of it was within my power to change. So I stopped trying to leave. I just endured. The sunk cost fallacy. I kept thinking, if I just try harder, if I just love him better, if I just wait a little longer, it'll pay off. I was throwing good years after bad, hoping to recover my investment. But here's what I wish someone had told me. You can't love someone into being healthy. You can't fix people who don't want to be fixed. You can't save someone who's drowning while they're pulling you under. The psychology. The red flags were always there. In therapy, I made a list. All the warning signs I ignored. And when I looked at it, I was shocked. Every single red flag appeared in the first 3 months. The love bombing, the isolation, the jealousy, the control. I saw them. I knew something felt off, but I explained them away. He just loves me intensely. He's had bad relationships before, so he's protective. He has trust issues from his childhood. He's just passionate. I made excuses because I wanted the fairy tale. I wanted to be special. I wanted to believe I'd found something rare. And he exploited that. The psychology. Why they do it. My therapist said something that shook me. People like Marcus aren't broken princes waiting for love to fix them. They're broken people who've learned that control feels safer than vulnerability. Marcus wasn't evil. He probably did love me, in his own warped way. But he loved control more. He loved power more. He loved the version of me that existed only to validate him. People like him often have their own trauma, their own damage. But that's not an excuse. Trauma explains behavior. It doesn't justify it. And here's the hardest truth. I couldn't save him because he didn't want to be saved. He wanted a reflection, not a partner. He wanted control, not connection. And I had to accept that nothing I did would ever be enough, because the problem was never me. The psychology. Healing isn't linear. 6 months after leaving, I almost went back. I was lonely. I missed the good parts. I wondered if I'd overreacted. Marcus had texted from a new number. I'm in therapy. I'm different now. Please, just coffee. Let me show you I've changed. And part of me wanted to believe it. That's the thing about trauma bonding. Even after you leave, your brain still craves the pattern, the cycle, the chaos. Recovery isn't dramatic. It's not a montage where you wake up one day and you're healed. It's choosing not to respond to that text. It's crying in the shower because you miss him even though you know he was killing you. It's having good days where you feel strong, then bad days where you doubt everything. It's learning to trust yourself again, to trust your instincts, to believe you deserve better. I didn't respond to his text. And 3 days later, a woman I didn't know messaged me on Instagram. Hi. I know this is weird, but did you date Marcus? I'm dating him now, and I found your name in his phone. Can we talk? My blood ran cold. I called her. We talked for 2 hours. She described the exact same pattern. Love bombing, isolation, control. She was 4 months in. I told her my story, not to convince her to leave. You can't force someone who isn't ready, but to plant a seed, to let her know she wasn't crazy, that the red flags she was seeing were real.
She thanked me.
I don't know if she left him. I hope she did. But that conversation crystallized something for me. Marcus hadn't changed. He'd just found a new target. And if I'd gone back, I'd be right back in that cycle. Because the problem was never that I wasn't good enough. The problem was that he was fundamentally unwilling to change. That's when I truly started healing. Not when I left, but when I stopped hoping he'd become someone different. When I accepted that the man I fell in love with never existed. He was a performance, a mask, and the real him, the one who needed control, who weaponized love, who couldn't handle a partner with autonomy, that person was always there. I just hadn't wanted to see it. Year 3. After Marcus. What healing actually looked like. I got my own apartment.
Small.
1 bedroom. But it was mine. No one to ask permission from. No one monitoring what I bought or who I talked to. No one punishing me with silence. Just me. I hung art I liked. Painted the walls colors he would have hated. Blasted music at 2 a.m. because I could. I felt like a teenager again, learning how to be a person. I reconnected with friends I'd ghosted. My mom, my sister. They didn't say, "I told you so." They just hugged me and said, "Welcome back." I started doing things alone. Movies, restaurants, traveling. At first, it felt wrong. Lonely, like I was supposed to have someone with me. But gradually, I started enjoying my own company. Remembering what I actually liked, not what he liked. Who I was when no one was watching. Therapy helped. So much. I learned about attachment styles. I was anxiously attached. He was avoidant. A toxic combination. I learned about boundaries. I had none. He exploited that. I learned about self-worth. Mine was tangled up in whether someone else valued me. I learned to recognize patterns. To trust my gut. To walk away early when something feels off. I dated again.
Carefully.
The first guy I went out with did something small, canceled plans last minute without much explanation. Old me would have spiraled, made excuses, blamed myself. New me texted back, "No worries, but I don't think we're a match. Good luck." And I blocked his number because I'd learned something crucial. I'd rather be alone than almost comfortable. Eventually, I met someone kind. His name is David. He's a high school teacher. Steady, calm, boring in the best possible way. On our 3rd date, I told him I'd gotten out of an abusive relationship and I was still healing. You know what he said? "Thank you for telling me. I'll go at whatever pace you need." And he meant it. When I flinched the first time he raised his voice, he was cheering at a basketball game, he noticed. Apologized. Explained. When I got anxious about texting too much, he said, "I like hearing from you. You're not bothering me." When I wanted to keep my own apartment even after a year of dating, he said, "That makes sense. No rush." He gave me space to heal, to trust again, to learn that love doesn't have to hurt. I'm not going to tell you it's perfect. I still have bad days. Sometimes I have nightmares about Marcus. Sometimes I see someone who looks like him and my chest gets tight. Sometimes I catch myself falling into old patterns, apologizing too much, monitoring David's mood, seeking permission I don't need. But the difference is, I notice it now. I recognize it. I can stop it. Healing isn't about never being triggered. It's about knowing how to handle it when you are. A year ago, Marcus got engaged. I found out through mutual friends. Part of me felt sorry for her. Part of me felt relieved it wasn't me. But mostly I felt nothing. He was a chapter in my life. An important one, because it taught me what I won't accept. But he's not the whole book. And I'm the author now. So why did I tell you all of this? Because I know some of you are where I was. Telling yourselves it's not that bad. That you're overreacting. That if you just try harder, it'll get better. making excuses for behavior that makes you small. And I want you to know, your gut is right. Trust it. Here's what I wish someone had told me when I was in it. The red flags are never wrong. They're early warnings. Listen to them. Love shouldn't make you afraid. It shouldn't make you shrink. It shouldn't require you to lose yourself to keep someone else. You can't love someone into being healthy. You can't fix them. You can't save them, especially if they don't want to save themselves. Leaving isn't giving up. It's choosing yourself. And you deserve to be chosen, especially by you. Trauma bonding is real. The fact that you love them doesn't mean you should stay. The fact that it's hard to leave doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're human. You are not responsible for their healing. You are not their therapist, their mother, or their savior. You're their partner. And partnership requires two whole people, not one person propping up another. If you're in a relationship where you walk on eggshells, constantly apologize, feel like you're going crazy, are isolated from friends and family, feel afraid of their reactions, are being criticized constantly, have lost yourself. That's not love, and you deserve better. Getting out is hard. I'm not going to lie to you. You'll doubt yourself. You'll miss them. You'll be tempted to go back. But on the other side of that pain is a version of yourself you forgot existed. Confident, peaceful,
Free.
and she's worth fighting for. I'm Sarah, and I ignored every red flag until I almost disappeared completely. But I didn't disappear. I left. I healed. I became someone I'm proud of. And if I can do it, so can you. The greatest love story you'll ever have is the one you write with yourself. Make it a good one.
This is the end.
Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, like, comment, and share.